Hello, and welcome to this Express Publishing webinar. In this session, we're going to be talking about the adult series from Express Publishing, which includes Upstream and New Enterprise. For each series, we're going to look at the structure of the course, the key features, and the components and how they can be of use to you inside your classroom. What I'd like to do today is start by talking to you a little bit about our Upstream series. Now, many of you may be very familiar with Upstream. It's been a very popular series for many years. Upstream contains 8 levels from beginner all the way up to proficiency level. On your screen now, you can see all of the covers from the series. You can see the series actually begins at A1 plus level and progresses all the way up to C2 level. Now, this series has been designed especially for young adult or adult learners who are studying English to help them to develop their skills in different ways. The course has also been designed to help engage learners through a number of different topics, variety in the different themes that are introduced in each lesson, engagement through skills development and integrated skills in each lesson, as well as the engagement through progress and through learner autonomy. Upstream contains a number of different lessons and tasks that help learners develop into independent and autonomous learners and set them on the right path to success in their English studies. Now, let's have a look a little bit at the structure of Upstream and how the modules fit together. So what you can see in front of you here is the contents pages from Upstream. Now, each level of Upstream contains the same basic structure. It contains 5 modules, and each module is divided into 2 units. And each unit inside the module is centered around a specific theme or specific topic to which the vocabulary, the grammar, and the skills are tied together. Now, through each topic, the students are, of course, developing their linguistic competence, but at the same time, they're also going to be developing their general knowledge, their cross-curricular knowledge. At the end of each module, they also have the option, the opportunity for self-assessment and review through the self-assessment sections. And as I mentioned, through cross-curricular learning, through the cross-curricular sections, the students are also going to have the opportunity to connect what they've been studying in that particular module with other subjects from across the curriculum. Now, this is the same structure for every single level of Upstream. Now, let's have a look at what makes Upstream engaging for our learners. Even from the very beginning of the module, from the very first page, the learners are invited to explore, discuss, think about the topic of the module a little bit through some exercises, through some questions that invite them to explore a little bit what's going to come up in the module. At the same time, the modular page also provides the learners with some different sections here that you can see appearing on your screen that essentially show the learner what they're going to be learning, what they're going to be practicing throughout the module. So essentially giving them a set of learning objectives for that particular module. It can be highly motivating for students to actually see what they're going to be learning and set them, as I said before, on the right path to achieving these learning goals. So this is what we can see for the first page in each module, the modular page. As we progress through Upstream, there are a number of different reading texts and reading genres that the students are introduced to. These are vitally important in providing all the input that the students need. It also gives them valuable experience and skills in reading across various text types. We can see on our screen here various examples such as advertisements, newspaper headlines, poetry, postcards, to name a few. These are contained within the Upstream lessons. In every single module of Upstream, you can find a variety of different reading texts for the learners to develop their skills. What we also see in Upstream, in every single lesson that we encounter, the learners are introduced to some vocabulary. There's also sometimes the option to explore the grammar structures, but in every single lesson, the students will have the chance to perfect their English language skills. So their listening skills, their reading skills, speaking and writing. And all of these skills in each lesson are integrated very carefully so that the students have the opportunity, the resources, the tools in order to develop these skills effectively. So what we can see here is one of the lessons from Upstream that presents some vocabulary, but also helps the learners to develop their skills at the same time. When we talk about vocabulary in Upstream, when we present vocabulary in Upstream, all of the vocabulary presentation is very closely linked to the theme of the module. So the learners are being exposed to, being introduced to vocabulary that's going to help them to communicate. It's vocabulary that's going to help them to get a broader understanding of the topic theme in general. And for each vocabulary lesson or each vocabulary task, the students also have the opportunity to activate the new vocabulary words through various exercises that allow them to associate the new words, activate them through a game, for example. Here we can see an activity that involves students playing in teams and guessing the vocabulary words through using describing words or using sentences to explain the different words. This is what we can find throughout Upstream, so that students aren't just memorizing vocabulary words, they have the chance to actually use them for communication at various points during the lesson. Throughout Upstream, we also allow students not just to learn or memorize grammar, but also to explore the use of grammar. I think this is a very important element in any kind of grammar teaching, allowing students to actually see how the grammar is used for communication. I think this is really essentially our ultimate goal when we are learning grammar, to be able to actually use it for communication. Throughout Upstream, the grammar is actually presented through both inductive and deductive approaches, through the grammar theory or exercises that allow students to work with or understand the grammar rules that they've been working with, through the grammar reference sections, through the grammar tables that you can see in front of you. The students have access to the grammar rules. They have the access here to the information that they need to begin practicing each grammar point. As we move through the grammar lessons, towards the end of each lesson, the students will also have the opportunity to use the new grammar that they have been studying, the specific grammar items, for a communicative task, either a spoken task or a written task. For example, this particular task involves students working together as part of a city tours team to find out where various tourists come from. And this involves them asking each other questions to complete their student cards with the information that they need. And to do that, they need to use the grammar that they have been studying in this particular lesson. And the extension task of this exercise is to then organize the different tourists onto the tour buses. So from the grammar that we've been studying, we allow the students to use this in a realistic communicative task, and also a task that involves an element of problem solving as well. So we're not just teaching the students grammar, we're allowing the students here to work with the grammar in different ways in realistic communicative tasks. As we progress through each module, whenever we have a skills task, quite often you will see a study skills section that allows the students to read some tips or some strategies that they can use during their studies. Things like remembering new words, connecting new vocabulary words and associating them, helping them to learn them more quickly. Things like brainstorming, for example, how to plan for a written task or even for a presentation. For example, we also have, we can see here, tips on how to become a better learner. So, for example, trying to learn 10 words a day, or trying to speak to your teacher and classmates in English. These study skills are here primarily to help the learners and help them to develop into more independent, autonomous, and confident learners. And these are sections that you can find throughout our Upstream series. In each lesson that involves speaking, we're not just teaching students speaking skills, we're getting them to develop into confident speakers of English. We can see that all of our speaking lessons are called the everyday English lessons. This is because each speaking task involves everyday English vocabulary, an everyday English setting, and it encourages students to communicate in a realistic setting. Here we're going to the shop to buy some clothes. We're going to have a shop assistant and a customer communicating with each other. To help the students to develop their spoken skills here, we also provide them with a communication model in the form of a dialogue, which we can work with for comprehension, we can work with for vocabulary, we can also work with this text for functional language that can be extracted and examined before the students then prepare and deliver their own similar dialogue. So throughout Upstream, we give the students plenty of opportunity to develop their spoken skills, and at the same time scaffold and break down the task to help them to develop their skills in a structured way that allows them to become more confident speakers. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, each module has the opportunity for cross-curricular learning, or CLIL lessons essentially, that combine both the linguistic elements of the module with new content, perhaps new subject content from across the curriculum. Here we can see two examples of an art and design lesson, and also a lesson based on citizenship. So the learners get to connect what they've been learning in the classroom with a wide range of different topics and subjects from across the curriculum to expand their general knowledge and also expand their horizons as well, learning perhaps new and interesting facts that they wouldn't necessarily learn in the general English classroom, giving them a window to the world outside the English classroom. What we can also find throughout Upstream are cultural sections. When we're learning language, I think it's impossible to separate language from culture. So through the cultural sections, the learners will learn about a specific topic connected to a different culture. Here we're looking at sports across the world. We're looking at sports stadiums in the United Kingdom, for example. We have a text for the students to read, to learn about a new stadium that was created or built in the United Kingdom. And at the end of each cultural lesson, the students always have the opportunity to connect what they've been studying in the cultural lesson to their own reality. So by the end of the lesson, the students are writing a short article about a stadium, a sports complex in their own country. So being able to connect new learning with their own experiences. This is a very important element of Upstream and something that is equally engaging for the students as it adds personalization and meaning to each cultural lesson. Now, throughout Upstream, in addition to the skills practice, the speaking, the vocabulary lessons, we also have a number of exercises that help learners to produce, study, consolidate language in fun and engaging ways. For example, throughout Upstream, you can find a number of songs that help us to present vocabulary in different ways, through rhythm, through rhyme, even at the same time, allowing students different ways to engage with language and authentic ways to engage with the target language. We can also find a number of games. We saw a couple of games earlier in the vocabulary lesson. Throughout the entire module, throughout the series, you can see a number of different games here that have communicative targets, allowing students to produce language in more relaxed, fun ways with each other. Imagine a crazy zoo. What are the animals doing? Play in teams. So here, perhaps the goal here is to work on the present continuous and making perhaps some silly sentences, but this is the kind of thing that students will be more engaged with. Adding some humor to the lesson can also make it memorable as well. Or give your teacher something that belongs to you. Your teacher hands out the objects around the class, find out whose object you've got and give it back. So a game that involves some kind of mingling activity. It involves students going around the class, speaking to each other and asking each other questions. This could be even like an icebreaker game that can be played maybe at the beginning of the lesson, for example. And throughout Upstream, you have the option to use these games whenever you see fit to engage the students, and as I said, to add this extra element of fun and humor to your lessons. Now, speaking of humor, Upstream also contains a number of jokes and fun fact sections that keeps learners engaged, keeps them interesting, and again gives them authentic ways to engage with the language that they've been studying, and again, of course, making the lessons just a little bit more humorous and a bit more memorable for them. So these fun times sections, the comedy sections, the did you know sections are established throughout the course for this extra element of engagement and interest on behalf of the students. At the end of each module, the students then also have the opportunity to self-reflect on their progress. We can see a double-page spread at the end of each module called the self-assessment section. In these sections, the students have the chance to revise and consolidate the vocabulary and also the grammar structures that they've been studying, and also the 4 skills. We have a listening task, a reading and writing, and an everyday English task that gets the students to look at perhaps the functional language or the key language that they've been using in the communication tasks that they've been practicing previously in the module. And at the end of the self-assessment section, we also have the Now I Can section. This is essentially the competencies for the module that the students can self-reflect on. Now I can talk about countries and nationalities, for example. Now I can ask for and give personal information. Self-assessment, self-reflection is an important part of our learning process, and having these sections at the end of the module allow the students to perhaps establish a more open channel of communication with their teachers. It allows the teachers to get some useful feedback from the students, and of course allows the students to feel good about what they've accomplished in the module and set further learning objectives if they need to improve on anything else. So these sections can be highly motivating and engaging for students as they progress through the modules and as they are developing their English skills. So now let's have a look at some of the 21st century skills that we can find in Upstream. Of course, 21st century skills relate to communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. These are, of course, essential skills that are used and necessary in higher education, employment these days. These are skills that are extremely valuable to the individual, and Upstream throughout the modules allows students to engage in 21st century skills in different ways. For example, things like project work and independent research allow students to use language a bit more creatively. It allows them to express themselves in the target language, at the same time engage them in further reading and independent research that are, of course, very important skills to develop for the future. Here we have a short project researching the family tree of one of the Queens of England and presenting it back to the class. This involves perhaps the student doing some independent research, putting together some ideas, finding things out by themselves, and perhaps giving them some kind of creative outlet to present their findings back to the class. Now, what we can see here is the development of writing in Upstream. Now, for those of you who use our Express Publishing books, you will know that we take writing very seriously at Express Publishing, and each writing lesson that you find in our books gives students a comprehensive approach to developing their writing skills. All the way from the very beginning to the end of the lesson, the students are supported and given the necessary information and skills that they need to become confident and successful writers. So at the beginning of each lesson, no matter what kind of text we are writing, we always have a warm-up or a getting started section that get the learners to think about what kind of text they're going to be writing in the lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to be writing a postcard, And the students are challenged to think about, first of all, why we write postcards, who we usually write them to, when we are writing them, and what kind of style we use. So before the students even pick up a pen or pencil or start typing something, they are challenged or invited to think about the reasons why we write texts. And this is very important, especially as we begin planning and preparing to write our texts, the kind of information, the kind of style that we need to use. The second element of the writing lesson that we usually focus on is the rubrics. It's very important for students to understand and analyze rubrics, to understand what they need to do in the writing text, to make sure that they include all of the relevant information, to ensure that nothing is left out or no irrelevant information is included. So this is why we have understanding rubrics sections or small tasks that allow students to look at a rubric, analyze what is needed by perhaps underlining keywords, answering questions that help them to understand what is required, for example. And of course, this is an important exam skill, especially when students are performing writing tasks in exams, to be able to understand and accomplish rubrics effectively. We also have, of course, model analysis throughout the writing lessons. Without sufficient input for the student, we can't expect a high level of output. And our input in the writing lessons is, of course, the writing models. So in each lesson, the students will also be analyzing a writing model where we can focus on here some of the vocabulary, some of the grammatical structures we may need to use, and of course, the functional language, and not to mention the structure at the same time. How is the writing put together? How do we begin? How do we end? What does my paragraph look like? How is my overall writing structure for this text? These are the kinds of things that our students need to think about, and this is what we try to focus on in Upstream. And even before students begin writing, after all of the scaffolded practice that they have, they are then also invited to think about or plan their writing text. So through the planning sections, the students are given the opportunity to think about, plan out their text, from how they're going to begin their opening remarks, their introductions, what to include in the main body, and how to sign off and even include some kind of conclusion as well. This is vitally important for the students, especially in terms of the writing structure. And this is something we also work on in every single writing lesson of Upstream. So that was the writing. A couple of other things that I wanted to show you today in terms of the features. Each module of Upstream also has the opportunity for learners to engage in a number of different social issues through the values sections, okay, helping learners to think a little bit more deeply about some of the topics they have been studying, and also connect them to various social issues. Here we're looking at things like safe schooling, tips for the future, how to make your dreams come true. What kind of goals are you setting for the future, for example? And in each values lesson, the students have the opportunity to discuss various topics, various problems, various issues with the rest of the class, and perhaps have some kind of opportunity there, again, for self-expression, for critical thinking, the chance to actually get together as a class and discuss real life issues and topics together. And these can also include things like environmental issues. We can find throughout Upstream a number of eco-friendly sections that promote the environment and looking after the environment, for example. And from here, we can also find a number of other social issues. It's also important for students to become aware of such things, as these things are, again, vitally important in our society in general. So having these sections here help the learners to expand their general knowledge, their knowledge of the world, what's happening in the world, and at the same time, of course, giving them perhaps a more specialized vocabulary and new and interesting content from across the curriculum. What we also have in Upstream, of course, is the opportunities, constant opportunities for students to collaborate and communicate together. The learning process isn't always just an individual process. It can involve many people at the same time. So giving students continuous opportunities to work together in groups, whether that be in a project or a portfolio, for example, working together with a common goal, perhaps doing some research, sharing ideas, and of course, the opportunity for communicative tasks in groups or in pairs, so that they can actually have some kind of interaction during the class. This is vitally essential, and of course, this is another 21st century skill in the form of communication and collaboration. What we also have through Upstream is the opportunity for synergy. Now, synergy helps the learners to kind of bring together what they've been studying in each lesson and give some kind of feedback. It allows them to essentially reflect on what they've been studying in each lesson and communicate this to a partner, share some ideas with their classmates. So here we have an example of a synergy task. Spend 2 or 3 minutes revising what you have learned in this lesson, close your books and tell your partner. So this is the perfect opportunity for students to have a bit of self-reflection, give them time to perhaps process the information that they've been studying and have some kind of discussion. We know that all learners learn at different speeds, different paces. They have different learning styles. So this is a good opportunity here for the learners to perhaps interact with each other and spend some time to actually try and process everything that they've been studying in each lesson. And this, of course, can help them to become more independent and autonomous learners at the same time. So those were some of the key features of Upstream. These features, as I've tried to demonstrate today, help the learners to engage with the language, with the topics on a much deeper level, and at the same time give them the necessary skills that they need to be successful in whatever kind of situation they go into in the future, and equip them with the language skills and confidence that they need as well. So what I'd like to do now is just to finish off by showing you the components for Upstream. You can see the different components labeled on the screen in front of you. We have, of course, the student's book with audio CD available. For extra practice and consolidation, we also have the workbook, which is available for the student, and also there's a teacher's edition as well. And we also have, of course, the teacher's book of Upstream, which contains all of the lesson plans. It contains the audio scripts, suggested answers to the exercises in there. It's a full and complete guide to take the teachers of Upstream by the hand and give them all of the necessary steps that they need to make their classes enjoyable, engaging, and at the same time accomplish the learning goals and objectives as well. What we can also find is an activity book for Upstream for extra practice. This also includes a DVD that accompanies the activity book for extra practice, extra exposure to the English language. And of course, how can I not forget the interactive whiteboard software, which is available for Upstream series. This is an excellent presentation tool for the teacher. It's a fully interactive tool that can be used on an interactive whiteboard or just a regular whiteboard, or even just projected onto a wall or on a computer screen or on a TV. The interactive whiteboard software allows the teacher to present the material of the lesson as it contains the full content of the student's book and the workbook. It allows the teacher to work through various exercises with video and audio material, and at the same time to correct tasks on the board. It's just an extra tool that you can use to bring this wonderful course to life and engage your students further through audio visual techniques and blended learning techniques at the same time. What we also have for Upstream on our Teachers Corner website, we also have access to a variety of downloadable teachers resources. These include the class audios, the test booklet, which contains fully customizable tests for each unit that can be printed out by the teacher, which means that you don't have to worry about creating your own tests or assessments for this series. You have everything that you need included in the test booklet and more, including quizzes, for example, and extra practice material to consolidate the lesson's work. You also have access through our Teachers Corner website to the DVD activity book key, which you can download. This contains all of the answers to the activity book, and of course the language portfolio, which is available for levels A1+ to B1+ for extra practice, extra consolidation, for the students. So this is what you can find on our Teachers Corner website. As I mentioned before, you can download all of these components that you can see on the screen, and this is something you can do for free as well. So please visit our site and you will be able to access all of these extra resources to enrich and enhance your upstream lessons. Okay, so that was the first session of Upstream. And now I'd like to move on to our second series of the day. Today, I'm also going to talk to you about our new Enterprise series. You can see the cover of A1 level on your screens. And really, this series has been developed for the 21st century learner, again, for young adult or adult learners to help equip them for the challenges of the modern world. Now, New Enterprise contains 6 levels, from A1 to C1, so students of New Enterprise can follow a path from beginner all the way up to advanced level as they progress through each book. And what I'd like to talk to you about first is this element of newness to the course, which is the only way to describe it really, because many of you at home or watching today may remember or may recognize the original Enterprise series. Okay, Enterprise was one of our most popular series, and it still continues today to be very popular around the world. And due to popular demand, we were really given the choice or the privilege to continue this wonderful course and remodel this course into something that contains a lot more modern methodologies and approaches. So with this is how we ended up with New Enterprise. And what we did was we took all of the elements of the traditional course, of the Enterprise course, and enriched them with these more modern approaches, such as cultural sections to help learners to expand their cultural awareness, CLIL sections, which allows students to engage in cross-curricular learning, using English to explore a number of different subjects such as art, history, maths, geography, for example, in each unit. We also included values sections that, as we saw in Upstream, also allow students in New Enterprise to examine, explore, and discuss a number of different social issues in the classroom and discuss them and prepare some projects about them. At the same time, we also, of course, focused on the 21st century skills, so collaborative tasks, group work and pair work, ICT research tasks that allow students to do their own kind of research and prepare their own kind of projects, for example, and of course, public speaking skills, essentially presentation work, debates, discussions that allow students to become confident public speakers and also well-prepared public speakers at the same time. At the end of each module, we also included competencies sections that allow students to really self-evaluate themselves and check their progress and feel good about what they've done in each module and help them moving forward. And of course, we've also included the study tips to help students to become more independent and autonomous learners. This is, of course, a useful section for students that are preparing for exams at the same time, because usually the study tips give the students specific exam skills to help them prepare for and approach different exam tasks in different ways. So these are the kind of elements that we've essentially put into the new course to enrich it with all of the traditional stuff, with the modern stuff as well. So really what the end result is a nice blend of traditional ELT with more modern approaches. Here we can see a lesson from New Enterprise, a lesson that combines a lot of the traditional skills, reading, speaking, writing, for example, vocabulary, nothing completely new. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not rediscovering America, but what we're doing is we're giving students throughout New Enterprise multiple learning pathways. This is something that we've tried to accomplish throughout the entire course. So giving students a number of different ways to learn things, a number of different ways to show their skills and demonstrate mastery of skills. So here we can see some more traditional tasks, presentation of vocabulary through audio, through visual, perhaps getting students to associate the words to the pictures, getting students to then categorize the words and find definitions in their dictionaries. At the same time, however, we've also included some more modern approaches, some critical thinking tasks or personalization tasks, getting students to think about or express what their favorite animal is and why. So connecting the new learning to more personalized tasks, and also including ICT research as well, getting students to do some further reading, do some research into animals, writing a short text about it, maybe presenting it back to the class. And of course, most of the lessons in New Enterprise are also accompanied by a documentary style video that also introduces the topic, introduces the vocabulary, and exposes students to the English language as well. So this is a great example of some traditional ELT tasks with some more modern approaches and technology as well through the video, the opportunity for blended learning. And as I said, creating multiple learning pathways for the students, giving them a lot of different opportunities to learn things and develop their skills in different ways. Here we're looking at the grammar lesson in New Enterprise, and I'd like to show you a little bit how we approach grammar in New Enterprise. Now, perhaps as teachers, we know that grammar is not always our students' most favorite subject. So what we try to do in New Enterprise is to really give students the opportunity to explore grammar in different ways, and always give them the opportunity for activation and production of grammar. We normally begin with grammar presentation in context through a dialogue or through a short text, or through something that is going to engage the students either visually or through some kind of new information, new kind of input for the students. Here we're looking at very short text, and from this text we're going to use it to explore the grammar rules through the grammar tables that follow, and then through the graded practice and activation tasks that follow that. And very important to mention to you today, each grammar lesson has multiple opportunities here for communication, either through spoken or written tasks that give students the opportunity to put the grammar theory into practice. This is normally something that is quite often overlooked, I think, in grammar teaching. A lot of focus on theory, but is there enough focus on practice? New Enterprise ensures that students have adequate and sufficient practice of the grammar at every single opportunity throughout the lesson, in engaging, communicative, and interesting ways, involving students talking to each other, maybe even finding things out through a survey and going around the class and asking people questions to complete the survey, for example. These are the kinds of things that we've tried to include in the course to engage students in grammar and show them the practical uses of grammar and get them to use it in each lesson. Now, each grammar lesson is also followed by a skills section. This is a double-page spread. Here we're looking at the first page, and typically the first lessons in the skills sections focus on speaking and listening. So in this lesson, the students are introduced to some new vocabulary, which they have the chance to discuss. This then flows into a listening task where, again, the students are given the opportunity to develop their listening skills in different ways. The study skills in these lessons also help the learners to develop essential pre-reading, pre-listening skills, for example, different ways to approach these tasks in exam-style settings, how to prepare effectively and how to approach these tasks effectively. And of course, we also have the everyday English sections in this lesson, which give the students the chance to use English in a realistic communicative setting through a dialogue which is analyzed. Again, for vocabulary, for structures, for functional language, the students have the opportunity to listen to the dialogue for the pronunciation and intonation. They also have the chance to have a look at some of the functional language in more detail here, and then use that language, use the model to prepare their own dialogue at the same time. So a very scaffolded and supported way to help learners to develop their spoken skills through the lesson. Okay, here we can see a closer look at some of the tasks here, the speaking task flowing into the listening task, and then we have a communicative everyday English lesson here with the model, with the functional language, the chance to listen to the dialogue and act out the dialogue and then prepare a similar dialogue after studying it extensively in the class. And the second part of the skills section also has the reading and writing. This involves the students developing their reading comprehension skills, so reading for gist or specific information. And this will then serve as a model for the writing text. Usually the students will be writing a similar text to the text that they have been reading already, so that in this way the skills are integrated and we have the chance here for students to fully develop each skill using the other skills to help them to do this. And of course, you can also find things like writing tips throughout these kinds of lessons that help students to become more confident and effective writers. Okay, so for example, in this lesson, we're looking at how students can link ideas using connectives, for example, the use of capital letters, even these simple things that students may overlook that can cost them valuable points in an exam, or just simply to give them more confidence when they're writing. Now, I mentioned earlier the cultural sections. Here is a closer look at the cultural sections in New Enterprise. Here we're looking at the flags of the English-speaking world, and this is a great opportunity for students to expand, again, their cultural awareness, their global awareness, and always connect it to their reality as well. There's always chances here for communication and collaboration. At the end of this lesson, the students also have the opportunity to collect their own information about their own country's flag and prepare a set of interesting facts to prepare and present back to the class at the end of the lesson. And of course, at the end of each unit, we also have the self-evaluation and review sections. This is a great opportunity for students to revise and consolidate the language from the lesson, and at the same time, refer to the competencies sections, again, looking at can-do statements and giving the students the chance to evaluate what they've done, feel good about what they've done, and perhaps to even set learning objectives going forward to keep them motivated, to keep them working towards developing their English skills effectively. Here we can see an example of the CLIL sections throughout New Enterprise. Of course, when I talk about CLIL, I'm talking about content and language integrated learning. These sections, these pages are, they essentially allow the students to connect what they've been studying in the class to other subjects, other content from across the curriculum. Here we're looking at citizenship. So students get to think about different ways that we can be good citizens of the world, and even have exercises here that get students to think about how they can be good citizens of the world, what kind of examples they can give for this, and also working in groups, having some opportunity here for more collaboration, for a project, designing a poster, how to be a good citizen of the world. Again, this is something that involves 21st century learning, research, collaboration, even public speaking skills in the presentation of the project back to the class. And of course, the 21st century skills, I've mentioned them numerous times today, but this is something that is vitally important in both Upstream and New Enterprise. When we see here the think sections that you can find throughout the course, these sections allow students, or they give them the chance to think about more deeply what they've been learning about, get them to reflect on texts. For example, in the first exercise, say or write 2 things you learned from the text. We're teaching students not just to read texts, but to be able to react to texts, to get their own understanding of a text, and perhaps even think about what they want to learn and how they can actually expand further on their learning at the same time. These kinds of tasks allow students to really think about what they've been learning, and of course opens the door for further reading, project work, and even presentations at the end as well. We also have the opportunity here for research sections. Right now in the 21st century, the teacher is no longer the source of all knowledge in the classroom. We have unlimited access to technology. So in New Enterprise, we give students the tools, we give them the opportunity to engage actively in research, ICT projects, for example, making them more competent users of technology, giving them the chance to actually use technology for their own study, for their own research, further developing their own interests and further developing their skills, which of course are highly important, the ability to be able to research things effectively. So we give students unlimited opportunities throughout New Enterprise to develop these specific skills. Here we can see some more examples here of collaboration and creativity. So plenty of opportunities for students to use language creatively, work together in groups, designing, drawing, making posters, projects, for examples, even using language to create different kinds of texts, for examples. As we can see at the bottom here, you want to create your own personal web page. So creating perhaps a web page article, using what they've studied to then write a brand new text, for example. And of course, we have the value sections. As we saw in Upstream, this allows the students also in New Enterprise to explore and discuss various social issues from around the world. And of course, there's always opportunities here for critical thinking, creativity, project work along the way. And of course, ICT research for students to look a little bit more deeply into these topics as they go. When we deal with public speaking sections in New Enterprise, as you can see, we spend an entire lesson developing public speaking, not just to deliver a presentation, but how we actually go about preparing a presentation. So what would be the planning stages? How would we perhaps brainstorm ideas? How would we then organize these ideas into coherent structures so that we can demonstrate them to the class? In each presentation skills section, we also have the study skills sections that you can see at the top here, how to prepare your presentation, what kinds of steps you need to follow. So as we progress through the public speaking sections, the students get a comprehensive lesson, a comprehensive approach on how to actually prepare their presentation from beginning to end, from the early stages right up until the delivery stage, including here, as we can see on the page, models for the presentation at the same time, how a presentation might look, giving students plenty of opportunities for practice, plenty of opportunities to see how the presentations are structured so that they can begin to prepare and deliver their own presentations. And of course, public speaking is a vital skill that can be used in the 21st century in higher education or in employment. So these sections are designed to help learners to really develop their skills in these areas. So now I'd like to focus on the components of New Enterprise. To finish off the presentation, we had a look there at the key features. Now I'd like to look at some of the key components of the course for the students. First of all, we have the student's book, the workbook, and the grammar book. Each of these books contain also the Express Digibooks application. So the student's book with Digibook, the workbook with Digibook, and the grammar book with Digibook. All of these courses, they have the Digibook there. The Digibook allows you to access the full content of the book, either online or offline through our Express Digibooks platform. The Digibook contains all of the audio and video material for the course. It also allows students to check their progress. It gives them instant feedback. So it's a great solution if you are exploring asynchronous learning, for example, if you want your learners to do some extra practice outside of the classroom. The platform, the Express Digibooks app, allows you to engage your students in self-study, autonomous learning. It also allows schools and institutions to create their own classes, schools through the learning management system. So it allows schools to register students to classes. It allows them to assign homework to students and also to track their progress at the same time. So a valuable tool if you are looking at things like asynchronous learning, distance learning, things like flipped classroom and blended learning at the same time. This can be an ideal solution for you. The workbook and grammar book are in full color for New Enterprise, so it allows students this extra level of engagement. It also provides them with extra practice through the workbook, graded practice of everything that's been covered inside the student's book, while the grammar book also provides the same level of practice, focusing on the specific grammar items that have appeared inside the student's book. So you can use both of the books there for extra practice and consolidation. And if you want some extra grammar practice for your students, grammar theory and graded practice afterwards, you can also use the grammar book as well. What we also have for the teachers of New Enterprise, we have the teacher's book, which of course contains the full lesson guides, the plans, the audio scripts at the same time. At the back of the book, there are also photocopyable, formative and summative assessment sheets that can be printed off for extra feedback with your students. The teacher's book is a fully supported resource tool for the teachers that's going to support them throughout the entire lesson and give you all of the steps, the guides, the plans, even the extension activities that you need to conduct fully engaging lessons with your students. We also, of course, have the test CD-ROM available for New Enterprise. The test CD-ROM has all of the testing and assessment material in Word format. These are fully customizable and printable for your students. And of course, these also include a number of extra reinforcement activities such as quizzes and extra reading text, for example, that you can use for further consolidation and practice or revision with your students. And of course, we have the class CDs, which contain all of the audio material for the course. These are also downloadable from our Teachers Resource Corner, Teachers Resource site, Teachers Corner. I'm going to talk to you about that in a few moments' time. And of course, for New Enterprise, as we saw with Upstream, we also have the interactive whiteboard software available. This software is available on CD or also in downloadable version, so without the CD, and allows you to, again, present the course through the interactive tool. It allows you to work on reading texts with audio and video material there as well. It contains a number of extra videos for extra exposure to the English language, as well as quizzes and games for extra revision. And of course, it allows you to correct instantly on the board and have feedback with your students. So an excellent presentation tool, another kind of tool that you can use in your classroom to engage your students in the lesson and bring this course to life. So this was just the digital support that I mentioned before. Just to recap, we have the Express Digibooks app, which is available with the student's book, the workbook and the grammar book, and it allows you to access the full content of the books online or offline. It also includes the audio and video material as well. And for the teachers, you also have the interactive whiteboard software, which can be used inside of the classroom to deliver your lessons in a fun, engaging and interactive way. If you want to engage your learners in things like blended learning, for example, this could be the ideal solution for you. And just a quick mention here of our Teachers Corner website. I mentioned this earlier during the Upstream presentation. We can also find on Teachers Corner for New Enterprise for every level, the test CD-ROM in downloadable version. So you can download all of the audio and Word files, and the class CDs, the class audio, so you can actually download in MP3 format all of the audio files for the course as well. Again, this is completely free for you, so you can have all of these extra resources at your disposal. So I'd like to thank you very much for your attention today as we saw the two courses presented. I hope that this information has been useful for you. And if you would like to find out more about Upstream or New Enterprise, please do visit our website, www.expresspublishing.co.uk. You can also get in touch with your local distributor as well for further information about the products themselves. And on behalf of Express Publishing, we wish you all the best for the academic year ahead, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, and goodbye.